Hello everyone, welcome back to Science Teatime. It's me, Spencer, the PhD student and mycologist who has a lot of feelings about The Last of Us. I recently made a video called Everything Wrong with the Mycology on The Last of Us Season 1. Please check out that video if you're curious about how the real world science compares to the show. But the writers didn't get absolutely everything wrong, so I'm going to follow up with the things that the show did well. Let's make some tea and talk about everything right with the mycology on The Last of Us Season 1. So I will say this is going to be a shorter video than the Everything Wrong video. I was at the point with The Last of Us where there were so many scientific inaccuracies, I was celebrating really small wins. Like, oh, the mycologist actually said Ophiocordyceps, which is the real name of the zombie ant fungus, even though we commonly call it cordyceps casually. Or, ooh, that fruiting body on that zombie actually kind of looks like cordyceps and not some random harmless mushroom. But there are some interesting things they incorporated into the show that are taken from real modern science. Here's number 1. The Last of Us opens with a panel of 2 scientists, setting the stage for how terrifying fungi are and how realistic everything that's about to happen is. Realistic. And although some of what they said was a little bit sensationalist, there was one line that initially made me really excited about the science on the show.
True, fungi cannot survive if its host's internal temperature is over 94 degrees. And currently there are no reasons for fungi to evolve to be able to withstand higher temperatures. But what if that were to change? What if, for instance, the world were to get slightly warmer? Well, now there is reason to evolve.
Now there's something to this. To be clear, it's not true that no fungus can survive above 94 degrees. There's a lot of fungi that do really well at these temperatures. I even study pneumocystis, which are lung parasites of mammals, and they thrive at human body temperatures, even if we have a fever. We have plenty of commensal fungi that live all over our bodies, commensal meaning that they live on us without either harming us or providing us any benefit. We have a neutral relationship. These commensals live on our skin, in our gut, all over us, even though our bodies are warm. And some fungi even go into overdrive at mammal body temperatures. There's a disease called valley fever caused by the fungus coccidioides, and although these usually grow as mycelium in the cool soil of the western United States, when they're inhaled and exposed to warm body temperatures, they transition into a yeast form that can grow in our lungs and make us sick. However, it is true that most fungi generally prefer cool and wet conditions. Our endothermy, or warm-bloodedness, makes us naturally really resistant to fungal infections. Only a few fungi, like valley fever, can make people with healthy immune systems sick. And the idea that the Earth warming up is priming fungi to survive inside of human bodies, that has some scientific basis. Meet Candida auris. Candida is a genus of fungi that causes a lot of common yeast infections in the mouth, in the genitalia, and in the gut. But of the different Candida species, Candida auris is the new kid on the block. It was just discovered in 2009 in Japan from a woman's ear infection. Within just a few years, Candida auris infections were popping up on other continents, and researchers initially assumed this must be people spreading it to one another through international travel. Now, if people were spreading it directly to one another, their infections would be descendants of one another, like that woman in Japan giving someone else the grandson of her ear infection. But weirdly, when scientists genetically sequenced these fungal infections, they weren't related. They were distant cousins without a single common origin. What could explain this? Well, this is Dr. Arturo Casadevall, who is a mycologist with some bold ideas. For example, he thinks that fungi killed off the dinosaurs, which is something I might make a future video about. And he did some work with Candida auris, suggesting that global warming is what's causing these outbreaks. Basically, his hypothesis is that because the entire planet is warming up, higher temperatures in different countries primed several Candida lineages to be able to infect human bodies, thus simultaneous independent origins of a superbug. He even backed this up by demonstrating that the infectious Candida auris has a much higher thermotolerance, or maximum temperature at which it can grow and survive, than its close relatives. This is still a hypothetical explanation, but it is something we need to watch out for as the world continues to warm, and this was some real science that The Last of Us incorporated into the show to great dramatic effect. Cookie sidebar, although fungi like wet and cool environments, they often recruit algae or cyanobacteria to help them survive in hot and dry conditions. These symbiotic organisms are what we know as lichens. So I mentioned in my first video that zombies biting people to infect them doesn't really make sense because cordyceps spreads through spores. But some aspects of the zombie behavior on the show are consistent with the behavior of ants in the early stages of their zombie fungus infection. I've learned a lot about cordyceps and Ophiocordyceps from the work of Dr. Carissa de Becker. She is a mycologist at the forefront of understanding exactly how these fungi control the behavior of their hosts. She did a great interview with Wired about her thoughts on The Last of Us. I'm going to link that down below. I'm talking about some of the same things she discusses there, but she goes into a lot more detail about the actual host behavioral change aspect. In The Last of Us, the first warning sign that something is deeply wrong is this old woman who starts twitching. Definitely not creepy or concerning at all. And this is consistent with how the zombie-infected ants behave during the first few days of their infection. They get tremors. This is because the fungus grows in the muscle tissue of the ants and releases chemicals that affect their movement. Very similar chemicals produced by other fungi affect mammals in similar ways. For example, some fungi grow on grass and produce mycotoxins that are then consumed by cattle or sheep. This gives them a syndrome called the staggers, which you can see here. So the early convulsive behavior of these zombies is pretty realistic. Notice, however, that I said Ophiocordyceps grows in the muscle tissue of the ants, not the brain. Yeah, this fungus actually never grows in the brain or nervous tissue of the ants until after they're already dead. They stimulate the muscle tissue directly to affect their behavior. Sure makes the whole finale thing seem a little silly.
Cordyceps grows inside the brain.
Regardless, this twitching combined with an alteration of their normal smell means that infected ants are often discovered and removed from the colony. It seems like removing people who were twitching into some kind of high security quarantine would have been a better idea than, I don't know, bombing one of the most densely populated cities in the world when who knows how many people have already gone in and out. Oh, well, cookie sidebar, many different parasites alter host behavior, and some parasitic fungi do grow in insects' brains. This is Entomoptera muscae, which is not related to Ophiocordyceps, but which grows in the brains of flies and turns them into fungus zombies too. Although our friend Dr. Ratna Pertiwi was a bit rash in her suggestion to bomb Jakarta, she did say something else that I was glad to hear accurately represented on the show.
Tidak ada obat dan tidak ada vaksin.
Well, not the part about there being no medicine, actually. There are several different kinds of antifungals that target various components of the fungal cell wall. But she is right that there would be no vaccine to treat this infection. In fact, there has never been a successfully approved vaccine for any fungal disease. Ever. We all watched multiple viral vaccines get produced wicked fast during the COVID-19 pandemic, but decades of work have not managed to produce a single fungal vaccine. So what makes fungal vaccines so elusive? This has a lot to do with what I mentioned earlier. Mammals are pretty naturally resistant to fungal infections. Our high body temperatures are one reason, but we also have a lot of innate immune responses to fungi. Mammals have both an innate immune system, which is the built-in stuff that tries to kill everything that isn't recognized as a human cell, and an adaptive immune system, which can learn to recognize novel pathogens and eliminate them more efficiently. Vaccines train the adaptive immune system to produce antibodies that recognize pathogens before they grow out of control. But a lot of our body's defenses against fungi are part of our innate immune system. For example, we have this receptor called dectin-1 on some of our cells. This innately recognizes an important part of the fungal cell wall called beta-glucan and can recruit other chemicals and immune cells to come and kill them. But you can't teach dectin-1 to recognize novel components of stealthy fungi the way that you can teach the adaptive immune system to produce novel antibodies. The adaptive immune system does get involved with fighting fungi as well, however. For example, certain types of white blood cells called helper T cells activate innate killer cells to come destroy fungi. Sort of like the voice that says, "Avengers, assemble!" so that all of our favorite superheroes show up to save the day. This is why a lot of people with inherited genetic immune disorders as well as AIDS are more prone to fungal infections. These people have extremely low helper T cell counts. No one there to call the Avengers to assemble. So some ideas for fungal vaccines involve stimulating helper T cell responses, but this is really difficult in the immune deficient patients who need it the most. Another problem is that some fungal diseases like seborrheic dermatitis and recurrent vulvovaginal candidiasis are thought to be inflammatory immune overreactions to fungi rather than being the fault of the fungi themselves. In those cases, vaccines that stimulate more immune response could actually make the disease worse. It's very complicated, so Dr. Ratna was right to be hopeless about a vaccine arriving anytime soon. But some good news is on the horizon. We are getting very close to the first ever approved fungal vaccine. This is by a group at the University of Georgia who designed a vaccine to target 3 common fungal pathogens: Aspergillus, Candida, and pneumocystis, that's the fungus that I study. Their vaccine utilizes a peptide, or a short amino acid chain, that stimulates the adaptive immune system to produce antifungal antibodies. And they found that if animals are given this vaccine before becoming immunosuppressed, they are more protected from fungal infections. This could be helpful for people who are at risk of developing AIDS, or for those who will have to go on immunosuppressant drugs to have an organ transplantation, for example. This vaccine has passed preclinical trials, so I'm really looking forward to see if it'll be the first fungal vaccine to pass clinical trials as well. So those are all the bits of The Last of Us that I thought took a real leaf out of Science's book. I hope that in season 2 we get to see even more real-world mycology. And with that, that's the tea. Orange rooibos. Thanks for watching Science Tea Time. Please like and subscribe for more science goodies in the future. I have a few more Last of Us videos on the docket, and then we have the whole wide world of science delight at our fingertips. Just comment down below if you have any questions about anything I said in this video. Toodaloo.